We're gonna get, and this meeting is being recorded for those that missed that. Um, I this is a cool topic. I love talking about AI in general, but large like chat GPTs and those types of softwares. I think there's a lot that you can do if you do it properly. So I'm really excited to kind of be having this conversation. So I got a presentation here. We'll go through it. I'm curious, even just by show of hands, like I think most of us have probably goofed off with chat GPT, right? Yeah. No, not yet. Why not? What's prevented you from jumping in and just giving your soul to the robotic devil? Yeah, yeah, that's fair. Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. There's no shortage of what you can do with it. Honestly, anyone do something really cool with it, or have something blow up in their face that they tried to do and it didn't work out? No. I've gotten tons of poor quality stuff out of it before where I'm like, you're never going to take over, right? Yeah. It doesn't have enough information to predict the NHL playoffs.
My favorite thing to do is to get it to write something as it's written by somebody else. So like I think that's when I pulled Cindy in and I was like, talk about why the sky is blue as spoken by Elon Musk.
Oh my
right.
God.
And just like it'll actually frame it. Joe Rogan,
Yeah.
It's got some great
Yeah.
ones.
And actually one of the ones that I'll show you today is it's called Character AI. And it's specifically designed to either mimic a real person, one of them's Elon Musk, or to just fill a specific role. So you can just go and have a digital conversation with Elon Musk if you want to, if you have an hour to numb your brain. Oh, absolutely. Hey, we were just talking earlier today, and it's not with large language models, but I found a software that's AI that's a text to voice, and it's crazy accurate. It's crazy good. But you can also then train it with your own voice so that it mirrors your voice, and you give it a script and it'll just read it out. So theoretically, you could absolutely do a deep fake or something like that. You might get in trouble, might get some pushback, you might get, but you never know.
We'll take it for the team.
Yeah. Just,
I think the best thing about it though is the ability to just use simple commands like reword and like so you can still provide your words, your feedback, and it'll give you options of what that could look like slightly different, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's really the hope for today's takeaway of frameworks that you can use to utilize the tools properly. And we're going to talk about a few kind of different topics. We're going to do a review of a few kind of key concepts that we've talked about in the past few weeks that kind of directly relate to this conversation. I'll give you some different uses of generative AI. So I'll give you some prompts that you can take right away and go and goof around and see what it can do for you. And then we're going to dig more specifically into, okay, how do you build one? What does it mean to actually put one of those together? And prompt engineer, and I think I mentioned this a couple of times in our past training, they say that that's going to be one of the biggest jobs that's going to come up in the next 10 years is just knowing how to put these things together properly to give you the best quality results, right? There's some things, especially with ChatGPT, I'll dig into some things that outside of the prompt you can do to make it so it gives you better quality results back. And then we are going to dig a little bit into GPTs. So I've mentioned those a little bit in the past. Those are to GPTs are to ChatGPT what apps are to your phone is a way to think about it. So they essentially have an app market where you can go and get something that's pre-programmed and trained to respond in a certain way, giving you certain results and thinking in a certain format. And I'll kind of explain how all of that works as we kind of go forward. For a big part of today's conversation, I want to keep in mind what AI is. And that AI is just a computer doing what a person used to do for the purpose of our conversation. And why we talk about prompts being such a key kind of intermediary between getting the work done, right, and yourself. It's because right now we know that AI is not as smart as humans. There are things it can do better than humans, but by and large, we have not reached that point called general intelligence where it's as smart as a human, right? So that means that AI is dumber than a human, and we all know how dumb people are. The prompt needs to be giving them the information they need to succeed. And we'll talk about how you kind of do that in a minute here. But one of the things I covered in the very first, one of the very first sessions that we did was what's the process? If you want to implement AI, what's the process you used? I'm not going to drill into this in very fine detail, but what I want you to take away from this is that it's not something that you implement very broadly. it tends to have a more focused, narrow approach in how you implement it. So don't say, build me a marketing strategy. Say, I need help with search engine optimization, specifically this aspect of my business, right? The broader you are, the worse your results are going to be when you're coming back. And I just put that in there as well. I'm going to skip over it though. It's just that process that's outlined that we had talked about. These are kind of two. So generative AI is this big topic that we're covering today. And that is just a specific branch of AI that uses machine learning so that it can give you overall better quality responses, right? And you look at like ChatGPT right now is in its 4th iteration, and its 5th iteration is supposed to be coming out in June, I believe it is. And each time it gets to be better quality because they train it based on the interactions that it has had in its previous version. So what these are is just a specific branch that can do more and remember more, okay? I'm going to really quickly jump in and give you 10 prompts that you can use just for ChatGPT if you really want to, that I think a lot of people don't necessarily realize they have the ability to do. So the first is it can teach you something. So if you have a topic, and this 80-20 principle, has anyone ever heard of this before? The 80-20 rule? Yeah. So the golden ratio is what it's called. It was found by a Italian sociologist that discovered that 80% of peas in a garden came from 20% of the pods. 80% of the wealth in Italy was owned by 20% of the people. So the idea was 80% of your outputs come from 20% of your inputs. And you can utilize that to learn. Like how many have read a self-development book in the past few months, in the past year? Do you remember 80% of it or 20% of it? Right? So you want to utilize that principle to be able to get it to teach you something. And it knows what you're referring to because it has an intelligence that can go out and seek, hey, what is the 80-20 principle? So you can say, I want to learn about how to build a proper prompt. Identify and share the most important 20% of learnings from this topic that will help me to understand 80% of it. Okay. You can use it to improve your writing. I think we were talking about, you had talked about this as an example. That's a great idea to be like, hey, here's what I have, make it better, right? And we saw this in even Canva when we did the Canva training last time. You could have that magic right to be like, hey, change it and make it sound smart, right? So as long as the core of it is there, you can get it to rewrite stuff. I've seen people do this for business plans. I've seen people do this for grant applications, where they're like, here's what I'm putting in for the grant application. Here's the application itself. Give me recommendations on things that I should change to make it more aligned with the grant application. So you can kind of utilize it in a couple of different ways, but that's I just hit a button. Okay. Turn it into your intern and get to do stuff with you. I'm not digging into API today. When I say that, does anyone know what API is? No? It's just a way for you to code another app into ChatGPT and use the functionality of ChatGPT through another interface. That's all that it means. So when you look at a lot of other AIs that are out there, a lot of it's just ChatGPT or one of the competitors that they've just paid to access that API, where that company is paying OpenAI however much dollars a month. It's variable based on how much people use it. But like that Canva, that rewriting that we talked about last time in Canva, that's ChatGPT. They've just paid to get access to it essentially. So you can turn it into your intern just directly in there. And I'll actually show you an example of one that I built for myself to help with part of my marketing in a little bit here. And that specifically is, I made a GPT for that. But you tell it like, hey, I need to do this certain thing. So maybe it's a report that you need generated, market research that you need done. Maybe it's that you have, you want to identify opportunities or something like that. Get it to go and do the research for you. And it can come back with examples and ideas as well. It can build a learning plan for you. Doesn't matter what the thing is. You can tell it to build a learning plan for you if you really want to. I need to learn more about this topic. Build me a 30-day plan to get me there. The most common use I've seen to this, honestly, is coding. Teach me how to code. Teach me this coding language. In 30 days, make a plan, right? And then you interact with it to refine it if you need to. You can, I don't know why you would ever do this. And this is just like, I am test averse. I am not like, nobody that has ever known me through school or university, and my wife can attest to this, is like, I don't like tests. That's not a good way to gauge my knowledge. But if you really wanted to, you can be like, hey, I need to know more about this topic. Ask me 10 questions to see if I actually understand it, right? And then if you don't know the answers, is this another fire call? Because last time we had a horrific radio message come in, I think, about a fire call. But get it to ask you questions if you need to. get it to make prompts. If you really wanted to be like, be a prompt engineer for me and make me 10 prompts that I can use in my job, in my business. I'll tell you all too, like I will send this presentation along to Lynn, and she'll send it out to everybody as well. And I have a handout that I'll show you a little bit later on that talks about some of this stuff as well. But this is exactly it. And it will give you the full prompt here, and just insert whatever you need, relevant information you have, but get it to make prompts for you, get it to have recommendations for you if that's an area that you struggle with. But what you'll notice through all of these, and even in this one, it's very similar, rewriting. So here's a style of my writing, rewrite this so that it matches. All of these examples that I'm going through, whether it's learning a complex task, whatever it may be, generating new ideas, this is a great one. It's a great brainstorming partner. What you'll notice about all of these prompts that I've gone through, all 10 of them, is that they are not broad. They are very specific in terms of what you're asking it to do for you. And no different than if you were dealing with a person, you need to give them structure and format so that they can actually take and do what you need them to do, right? And we talked last time about delegation versus abdication, right? You don't want to give power away. You want to be able to empower this to do whatever it is. And it's a great time saver is ultimately what we're looking for here. I love this functionality. If you have this ties right into the 80-20 rule, but if you have something really long, like a report or something that's been sent to you, I've thrown it in ChatGPT and been like, just summarize this for me. Like, what is this actually saying, right? So you can absolutely do that as well to save you time. So those are just 10 examples of what it can do. It's very broad, and we're going to dig more specifically into other things that it can do, and specifically for business or in a more professional setting. Before we do that, though, I really want to dig into a few things that you need to understand about building prompts in ChatGPT. So the first is that it is not Google. What I mean by that is if you find that you are going to ChatGPT or any of these AIs and you are posing it a question or using it the same way you would use Google, you're not using it right. If you can find the answer through Google, if you can find whatever you're doing by Google, you shouldn't be using AI for that. AI can do much more complex things. And to be honest with you, if you're just looking for straight up facts and things you can figure out with Google, it's probably faster to just type it into Google and get the answer to pop up in front of you. So quite often people will use it in the wrong way and then complain about what those outputs are. It is not perfect. And a lot of people, I think this is something that they really need to understand about AI is it makes mistakes, it lies, it will tell you things that are not true. So you need to be able to validate it. It's not going to necessarily, it's no different than an employee. I will say that time and time again, is if it's something important for your work, would you just give it to someone that you're paying $15 an hour and be like, and trust that the work is good enough if it's for an important reason in your business? Or would you maybe read through it, take a look at it, validate that it actually does fit with what you need? There's horror stories. So like there's a lawyer, I think I've used this example before. There's a lawyer in the States that got it to make his closing arguments in a court case. And it just made up cases and cited made up cases to make his point. So it is an imperfect tool, and you trust but verify whenever you're using something like this. They even had a time, and because it's mirroring human behavior to an extent, where it would perform better if you offered it a tip or a bonus. Be like, if you do this well, I'll pay you an extra $100. And like, because it's programmed the way it's programmed and human behavior is inherent in it, it would do better. It would perform better. It would have better quality outputs, which is ludicrous to think about, right? But it's true. And it's no different than, and this is a slightly different example, but did anyone follow Google's ill-fated attempts down the image generation AI track? It was super racist. It was like, it made really unacceptable imagery that people would put these prompts in, and it was trained in a very bad way. And so Google, their CEO, their former guy that started it was like, we screwed up. Like, we're sorry, we're taking it off the market and we're going to fix it, right? But it is absolutely not something that's going to create flawless, especially when you're new to it, especially when you're not fully understanding those prompts and the relationship that you need to have. So trust but verify anything that you get it to do for you. Okay. This next point is addressed. Like it is not going to know what you want unless you tell it. The only prompting that you put in is the information it has to go and do its job. So if your outcome that you're looking for is different than what you're putting in there, your results might suck. So this third point is what we're going to dig into next, for the most part, talking about prompt structure, because that's the most important thing whenever we're talking about this type of prompts. And that it can remember. So we're at that point. I know with a few of the ones in the past that we talked about, we said it can't remember. It'll just go and do a thing and then forget about that conversation that ever happened. ChatGPT will remember, to the point that a couple weeks ago, I logged in and this popped up. So there is now the functionality that you can turn it on and it'll remember all your interactions across all of the different conversations that you've had with it, because it's linked by an account. So suddenly that provides and you can turn this on or off, whether or not you wanted to. You can manage what it remembers, and over time it better understands who you are, how you build prompts, what you're looking for, that type of thing. So this just gives it the ability to have more access to understanding who you are and work better with you, essentially. I'll show you where you can kind of turn that on and off in a later section here. And I think this is only in the Pro if you pay for it. It might be in the free version. I don't have the free version. I couldn't find a good resource on that though. Yeah. So if it does work in the free version, then absolutely.
Yeah, I have a free version, and it, like, you can see the past year, and you can choose which conversations you want to delete if you want.
Yeah.
The handy thing with it though is, like, working on a grant where there's different phases.
Yeah.
If you, especially if there's a couple months in between, if you go and ask it a question or ask it to work on things, it'll pull stuff from your previous one too, and bring
if you're in the
additional
same
feedback.
Conversation.
Yeah.
This will remember across all of your conversations.
Okay.
So if you were to open a new one and talk about this grant application, it would know because of the conversation you had here.
Yeah.
In this other one. It used to not be able to do that.
Yeah.
You would have to go in that same kind of thread, essentially.
And now you don't, like, even on I don't have the paid version, and it'll pull from anywhere.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. So it just makes it a better quality model, which is honestly their biggest concern right now, is that it's not necessarily performing against, especially alternatives, especially ones coming from China. Like, China's blowing up the AI world right now on all these benchmarks and performance indicators. So that's why they're trying to introduce things that just make it a better quality resource for you. So it will remember, and you can make it more helpful over time as well. This is this core concept that comes down to how to understand. We talked about this last time, so I'm not going to harp on it. You delegate to an AI, you don't abdicate to it. Any software, any technology. You need to be able to give it form, structure, process, procedure to do what it needs to do in the way you need to do it. You can't just say, go build me a proposal. I have these contracts where I work with entrepreneurs all over the country, and I read a lot of business plans. And you can tell when someone has gone to ChatGPT to write a business plan, because they're garbage. They don't understand how to do the prompts, the inputs. I had one person one time, and this is my rant. Just so you know, if you copy and paste the answer from ChatGPT, you have to remove the prompt and where it says GPT from it, or else. And I literally just had someone that submitted a business plan, and every new section, it was like prompt GPT response. And I was like, at least edit it, at least change it so that I know that you put some time and effort into it. So make sure, and the big thing with this delegation to me is feedback, which we talked a little bit about last time, and I'll talk more about it today. Clear communication and having oversight. You can get to a point, and we haven't talked a ton about automation. Automation you can often set and forget, right? And just make sure that it's still working over time. So certain processes that when this happens, when a customer pays me, I send them an email, right? That you can kind of have less oversight over. But if you're using ChatGPT to do something for you, keep that oversight. You'll spend less time doing it, get a better quality result if you manage it properly, but you still need to read what it writes for you and make sure it makes sense and that it's not making stuff up, because it does lie sometimes. One of my, I'm going to call it shortcomings that I had early on, and my wife can attest to this, is I'll just open the box and start building it. And a very common piece of advice I was always given was, no, RTFM, read the frickin' manual, because you need to know what you're doing before you do it. And so RTFM is an acronym you can think of in terms of how to build a prompt properly. So we talked about what you can use it for and everything like that, the risks and that, like, it can give you bad quality results and everything like that. This is an easy to understand prompt for how do you, or acronym for how do you build a prompt. So you want to identify these 4 things, or utilize these 4 things in your prompt as you build whatever the project is that you're building. So first, what is the role that you want that AI to take on? You need to tell it what you want it to be for you. So one of the first things that you want to do, and I put this all the time in prompts that I build, is what do I want from you? I want you to be an email marketing expert. I want you to be a grant writing expert. I want you to be a subject matter expert in history. I want you to be this thing for me. I want you to be Elon Musk. What is the role that you were assigning to this amorphous blob of an AI that you were talking to? There is no limit to what you can do, but understand that there are certain roles and good AIs. So like ChatGPT, I'm pretty sure if you tell it to be a financial planner, it will spit out a warning. And it'll be like, hey, I'm just an AI. You probably shouldn't listen to what I have to say about money. But some of them don't necessarily have that built in. And we were talking about regulation earlier today. The idea of like, how do governments even regulate AI? This is a way in which they want to regulate it, where they're saying like, hey, if you have AI generated content in certain areas, you need to identify that it's AI generated content. And like ChatGPT already, by the way, has that built into their terms and conditions. And I think financial advice is one of those areas. And I think health advice is another one of those areas where you can't just make AI content, throw it out there without telling people it's been generated by AI. Okay. But you still can give it pretty well any role that you need and as specific as you can, because you want it to be able to give you better quality results. Next is, what is the task that you want it to help you with? I've identified the role that you're going to take on for me. Now, what is the task that I need your help with? Well, these are just, again, not necessarily an exhaustive list, but you want to make sure that you're being specific. Are we talking about, I talk about levels of work quite a bit, right? So are we at the top end where we're coming up with new ideas? Are we trying to collect resource and validate if it's a good idea? Or are we trying to actually build milestones and like nose to the ground kind of strategies for moving forward, right? But what do you actually want it to do for you? And pick one thing. It's no different than again, like whether it's an employee or, I tell people with marketing channels all the time, tell your customer one thing, don't confuse your marketing and your messaging, right? And this is the same thing. Like, I want you to develop sales copy or help me to do this, right? The one that I'll show you a little bit later is a blog post that I got one that helps me to build blog posts that are better quality a lot faster. The third thing that you want to tell it is, what is the format that you want it to give you? So a lot of these models can build some incredible things. They can do a Word document. They can do coding language if you want to. They could give it to you as a table or a list. They could give it to you in a spreadsheet file. They can give it to you bullet points, however you want. But you can specify a certain format that you want for whatever it is that they're giving you. So you can, if you want to say, I need maybe it's a graphic, and this applies if you want to go and get it to make you an image. What's the format you want that image in? Is it a PNG? Is it, how big is it? What's the proportions that you're looking for? But what's the format that you want it to actually give you something in? Sometimes you're going to leave this blank, and I'll show you a bunch of other acronyms that you can use too. Like, this is not the exact way you're going to build all your prompts. This is meant to reinforce that prompts need structure, right? You can't just type in, do this thing for me. You need to give it more than that quite often. So how do you want it to give it to you? And then the fourth is that you manage it. Like, quite often, the first thing it's going to kick out to you is not the best quality result that you're going to get. You need to be able to give it concise feedback. You need to be able to, if you can, give it a process. Tell it, these are the steps that I want you to go through. And I'll show you an example of that in a little bit here. And be specific. This is too long. One of the format things that I'll talk about sometimes is tell it how many words. Create a concise summary of this document in 1,000 words and 750 words. That's format, right? This is too long. Make it shorter, and you'll find it screws up. Like, for the longest time, because I used AI early on to do blog posts before I knew anything in terms of like how to do it properly, and I'd always get so mad at it because I'd be like, it needs to be at least 3 times as long. And then it would spit it out, and I'd like put it into Google, and then I'd see the word count, and it wasn't as 3 times as long. And I was like, you're so stupid, AI. And it was like, it was me and how I was using it, right? And so you can give it very specific feedback to be able to get what you want. Like, I should have said this needs to be a minimum of 750 words. And then it got close. It wasn't perfect. So then that's when I had to come in and modify it and change it around. So you want to be able to give it as much as you can in terms of that context, feedback process, and being specific. Okay. I'll go through some tips a little bit later on. And I think this is on the sheet that I give out, but I'll just mention it now as well. A really common thing that people will do that are generating prompts is they'll give the context, the role, like, here's what I want you to do, the project I'm working on, the role I want you to fill, and some general information. Now ask me 10 clarifying questions so that you fully understand what we're doing. And it'll pop out 10 questions to get more specific, to better understand what you're doing. I've used it where it's like, I want you to ask me 10 questions about my business so you can help me build a better marketing model. And it was like, boop. And it gave me 10 questions that any marketer would ask you. It's the subject matter expert. So it's like, who's your customer? What channels are you using, right? What's the value that you're creating, that type of thing. But you can also do that for any prompt that you're doing, right? Recommend 10 books for me and tell me why they're worth reading about this topic, right? And then, give me 5 more. I want books now that are only available through Audible or something like that, right? So redo the list. Any questions on that acronym at all? And I'm just going to check Zoom to make sure that we don't have a question in the chat or anything like that. Any questions on the prompt, this idea of putting structure into your prompt? Yes, no? We'll play around with it in a little bit here. But what you can do as a result of this is build what's called a chain prompt. And all that is a prompt that takes place in stages. So you can say, this is the process that we're going to follow, but we're going to start with step 1. This is what I need you to do that information. And then your next prompt would be, okay, now we're moving on. Like, here's any feedback changes when you get that stage 1 done. Now we're moving on to the second stage of this prompt, where this is what we're going to be doing. So you can build, and this is what we had kind of been talking about earlier, with its ability to remember across different, whether it's that single conversation or across all of them. Chain prompts are really, this was the poor man's way of making GPT remember stuff before it had that ability. Because there was a time where ChatGPT couldn't do that. It couldn't remember. It had like a timeline even on the conversation, like one conversation. It sometimes couldn't refer back to itself after like 48 hours. So it's gotten much better. But chain prompts, I've seen people build ones that are like, they'll go into Word and they'll build out something that's like 750 words to say, this is the process and the context, but we're going to take it chunk by chunk by chunk. Because if you ask it to do too much, it's going to get bogged down. And I'll show you an example of how that works when we talk about the blog bot that I built. Okay. So outside of the prompt, there's other things that you can do in ChatGPT to get better quality results. So I'm going to open up ChatGPT here. This is what it looks like for any of you that are going to have ChatGPT open or OpenAI open. I want you to go to the settings, or you can go either settings or customize ChatGPT. But what you're able to do is tell it about yourself. Tell the software who you are, what you're doing, what interests you, anything that it prompts you to, and more if you have to. And then you can also, if you want to, cater its responses. If you want them to be professional, if you want them to be shorter, longer, detailed, always provide sources, whatever that thing is. And it will use this to fuel the answers that it gives you. It gives ChatGPT the ability to be customized to you and your specific needs, right? I'm a fire chief, right? That's in rural Northern Alberta. That this is what my interests are. It will use that as it's building whatever it is building for you, in the hopes of giving you more precise outputs. So this is taking care of some of those things that we had talked about with giving it context and things like that, right? This one, I think you have to be on the Pro version in order to get this. But when they upgrade to the next one, this version becomes the free version. So they both get upgraded at the same time. So they're on 3.5 is the free version right now. 4 is the paid version. When they open up, 5 will be the paid version and 4 will be the free version. And that's expected to come out in June. So you will have the ability to do this. And this, even like they add, this is honestly new since the last time that I logged in, but then telling it what tools it can use with these prompts. So you can tell it to look at different websites, and we'll talk about that in a little bit here as well.
Not avatars, but personalities. Like, can I be like Lynn at work or like Lynn at home when I'm doing? Good question. Yeah.
That's this is per account. You could change this out theoretically if you wanted to, but the other way to do it is maybe through a GPT, but I don't know if it would necessarily be worth it for you. So but then like, this is a good segue, honestly, Lynn, into the idea of like, don't blur the lines between personal and for your work. Like that's a sticky place to be in, especially when like, and there's things in your settings, for example, and you can opt out of this, by the way. So like if you go to settings, and I'll show everyone this real quick, you can tell it that you don't want it to train on your data. I don't want to give you all of this information. But like if you're doing something for work and whatever you're working on is owned or like sensitive information, ChatGPT is just going to give it to their servers and train their data on it. And you might be putting data out there that you shouldn't be putting out there. And like real talk, nobody holds them accountable to where they get their information from. Nobody. So they could be pulling from sensitive sources of information. Right now, there's no way to validate. So if you were using it for work, make sure that you have your okay from your work. And I would make an account specifically for your job. I would not mix those two worlds together necessarily. I do, because I don't take my own advice, and I just realized that I don't, like, I mix mine together, but you're like, you idiot, you're not taking your own advice. I never do. But do as I say, not as I do, right? But I do think, especially because like my boss doesn't care, right? Like he's cool with it. Nothing. I don't have any copyrighted information. I don't have any, like, I do have some sense. No, I don't never share it with them though. So think about that, and maybe we're separating them out a little bit as well. But here is where you can personalize it, make it remember. If you want to, the data controls is where you can improve the model for everyone. That's where it's like, do you want to be able to feed it off of what you input? So you can turn that on or off if you want to. But this is a way that you can personalize it and make it give you better quality responses back by understanding who you are and what your motivations are. Okay. What else did I have in here? Oh, uploads. You can add files. I say to give context all the time. So you can, if there were files on here, you can upload Excel, PDF, images. You can get it. I've had some people that have downloaded a bunch of just raw data, uploaded it, and told it to act as a data expert and interpret it for me. Find common, like, this is what this data is. Find me common correlations in here. Like, find me raw data that, like, interpret this for me. That's one thing that the data side, the number side, this will beat humans on 9 times out of 10 for it to be able to very quickly and accurately assess that. You can, if you wanted to, say you have a bunch of really unwieldy data that's really boring stuff that you want in a table, in a graph that's easy to understand, get it to do that. Convert the information in this table into this type of graph that's easy to understand. Boom, it'll put it out for you. So you can add files on there and get it to reference them as it's building whatever it is that you're building. The other cool thing that you can do, so I'll start a new chat here. I'm going to say, let's say that I'm working on economic development. I'm going to say for Northern Sunrise County in Northern Alberta, I want you to review this website and provide me a summary of the top reasons to move to this area that I can provide to possible interested parties. Let's just say that. And that's a sloppy grant. But then we'll go and we'll literally take the Northern Sunrise County URL and we'll paste it in. See what it says. So what it'll actually do is go to the Northern Sunrise County website, read it, and then tell me a little bit about it. Now, I would not necessarily trust what it puts out. I would validate and make sure that it makes sense. Yeah. But the point of this is that you can give it websites to evaluate and take a look at. That's another way that you can provide it with more context. So another common one is, here's my website. Recommend ways that I can optimize it for search engine optimization. I want you to identify keywords. I want you to identify things that I'm missing. I want you to tell me if anything's wrong with what I'm doing, right? I don't like this, so I'm going to say, turn this into easy to read bullet points. And hopefully it does. So community services, economic incentives, resident services. Yeah, and I just gave you the website. But one thing that you'll notice is that I should have been more specific, and I should have said, turn them into 5 bullet points, because it just took that information from this paragraph and then turned it into 3 instead of the 5 that I was looking for. But regardless, you can then provide it with links for it to review things if giving it access to that information is important. So uploading data through Excel typically, or you can do PDFs and images to get it to do something there as well if you wanted to reference it for any reason. And you can get it to go to a specific website as well. So outside of the prompt, those are some things that you can do to make your life a little bit easier and maybe to get better quality responses out of it. Any questions about that? No? Let's talk about GPTs. So this you do need the paid version for. I'll tell you that the App Store, it's one of their newer things that they're doing. So you do need a paid version for that.
How much is it?
I think I pay $20 a month. It's not necessarily, and it's a write-off to the business because I use it for a ton of stuff, right? What's that? Yeah, right? Absolutely. And this is, yeah, and Sportsnet. I don't know, my wife's ever complained about this so much. So I pay, and I don't have the Sportsnet Plus. I just have like the $20 a month Sportsnet. And I found out this year that I can't watch hockey games outside of playoffs on the East Coast. They're what's the word that they used to use? Time. They used to use it with satellites or whatever they would call it. There was a certain thing for time zones, and I was like, how ridiculous is that? That I have to upgrade to a $30 a month, which is more than ChatGPT, right? And I can just tell ChatGPT to make up a fake summary of a hockey game between the Ottawa Senators and the Boston Bruins. That cost me nothing. Sportsnet costs me $30 a month if I want to watch that. And it does. Never mind, it's fake because it would never be thrilling because Ottawa would get destroyed. But regardless, you can use it for all these different things. The cost is relatively low, but make sure that you're using it in that proper way. So GPTs, this is their app store. So this is where you can take a look, and if there's something very specific that you need done, these are pre-programmed ChatGPT chats for a specific function that can help you get better quality of results. So you can get a wine sommelier, you can get a code guru, they'll tell you a better image generator, something that'll write for you. This one's really cool. So this one is Scholar GPT, and I'd like anyone that has kids in university, tell them to use this for any sort of research that they're doing. This will literally just go and build an understanding of what resources you can actually pull in, right? And it'll give you actual articles that are sourced based on whatever it is that you're trying to do, right? You can make a logo. This one's designed to make a logo. So all of these are ways that you can this one I love, this coloring book hero, because my kids all the time ask me to print off a coloring book page. And I'm like, oh, what? And then I have to go to Google, and I'm like, and my daughter is like, she's better, but my son is so weirdly specific about the types of coloring pages that he wants. So I've tried to use this before to make exactly what they're looking for. It will do cartoonize yourself. So you could upload a picture of yourself. Remember, you can attach an image and say, make a cartoon version of me. So depending on what it is that you actually want to do, another logo one there, they will have an AI or GPT that's pre-programmed to do that thing. Okay.
Somebody on the Zoom doesn't have their mic on.
Yeah, I do think someone online has, here I have all the power. I muted someone. So these, and what you'll find is there's some like Wolfram, for example, where this is that API we were talking about. Like Wolfram is a massive website that deals specifically with algorithms that do complex math, essentially. So now they've connected it with GPT, so you can go and be like, hey, Wolfram, how much weight would you need to apply to one part of the Earth to make it move a meter in its orbit? And it would go to Wolfram, do that math calculations, and then bring it back to you. So these will plug into other things sometimes, or they're just, this one's made by Canva, and it's just meant to be able to help you to design things. So I've had mixed luck with it. I love making diagrams with it. I love, here's the process, now make it into an image for me. I do that all the time. But all of these are just ways for you to leverage it in a more precise way. So if you know you have a problem that you need help with and you have the paid version, then you can come here and you can say, you know what, I'm gonna search for one that specifically fills the need that I need. So I want a travel guide because I know I'm going somewhere. You can use it to book flights for you. You can use it to design a tattoo if you want to. There's all these different things that it theoretically can do for you. And the benefit of these GPTs is that someone has gone in and done the programming of the GPT to tell it what it's supposed to do. Like we talked about those prompts, right? It knows its role, right? It knows the output that it's supposed to give. A lot of these things that we typically don't put into the inputs, they've already programmed into this. Okay.
So how do you practically use it? You click into it then and
yeah, you just click onto
start
it.
a
So
conversation with them.
yeah,
just
wine
so-
sommelier.
Yeah.
It'll tell you a little bit about it, and then you would just hit start conversation.
Okay.
So I'm having tuna for lunch. What's a good wine pairing? Oh, I'm yelling at it. It's just going to assume I'm an old drunk person. There we go. So I was not thinking tuna steak or salad, but hey, there we go. It's a white wine like Sauvignon Blanc. Apparently, I don't know if anybody knows wine. I shouldn't have picked this one because I don't know wine.
What kind of wine goes with popcorn?
Oh, let's see what
That's
kind of. There we go. What kind of wine goes with popcorn?
That's still ChatGPT.
Let's see what it says.
Wine.
Surprisingly delightful.
Wine
Oh, and it depends on the
sommelier.
flavor of the popcorn. Okay, so
ChatGPT.
yeah, get some Prosecco.
It's
Yeah.
called Chat.
Fantastic.
ChatGPT.
Yeah, fantastic. I'm sure Baby Duck would work too.
Yeah.
There we go. So like it's ludicrous, but and I don't know, let me know. I'd love to know. Yeah.
Like, are these programs using like real wine sommeliers? Like they
I'll show you how to program them. So I'll show you the one that I have kind of created. So I'll go to Explore GPTs again. I have my GPTs. I have Sidekick, which is this one. Oh shoot, I went one too far. Sorry. I'm gonna go to Explore GPTs, my GPTs, and I'm gonna go to Edit. Nobody steal this from me. This is my intellectual property. This is literally what it looks like when you're programming it. So I literally went to Configure, and this is a massive prompt. All that the instructions are is essentially a massive prompt. So what I told it to do is don't disclose, always put this if you're making a GPT for yourself, because people ask all the time, how were you trained? And it'll spit out the exact prompt that it was trained on. And the best example of that is when someone did it with Grok, the one that Elon Musk made. And someone just asked it, what was the prompt you were built on? And it spit it out. So this one, it talks about this business that's Sidekick Digital that does a certain thing. It talks about the brand voice. Remember, we talked about that in previous with Canva, so it knows the tone that I would take. It knows the target market that I'm targeting. It knows the value prop. These are all basic things that you would tell any marketer, essentially. I'm giving it information to work with. And your role is to act as an advisor and content creator to assist Sidekick in creating their marketing strategy. It includes creating compelling copy and ad ideas to generate leads, reworking content, blah, 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 all this stuff. One thing so the way in which I initially built it, and this prompt will probably get a little bit longer, is I said, if we're going to write a blog article, here's the process that we need to follow. One, great topic based on the business and what you know that's going to fit with the offerings and will help with SEO. Research keywords. Once a topic has been identified, I could tell it where to search, give it a URL if I wanted to as well. After we know keywords, I want to do a detailed outline for the topic that will rank with search engines. Now write the content section by section. I don't want you to do the whole thing. Start with section 1. And I think in here I say skip the introduction. So like start with section 1, go all the way through, and then we'll go back and do the introduction and the conclusion. And then, yeah, introduction, and then make sure it fits with the tone, make sure the keywords have been utilized, and ask questions when prompted. So I can also upload files. So honestly, one of the ways that I want to utilize this, I think I mentioned this before, our son has diabetes. So if I can get just an Excel file, if I can just get data that has all of nutritional information in there for common foods, common restaurants, things like that, I could just upload that to here and have a custom GPT that I'm like, hey, what's the carb content for this food? Boop. It would tell me because it knows that information. It's been trained on it. So chances are it's something similar where it's like, it's been trained with data in some way, or with information this way, with a process to tell it how to do something. So you can get these conversation starters in there as well. So I'll show this to you in action. So I would say that it probably took me maybe 45 minutes to an hour to really build the prompt out and make sure it had the key things that I needed in there. But now if I go to it, I would say, okay, I want to write a blog. It already knows what the steps in the process are. So it already knows the steps that I have identified. Great. So it knows I'm targeting professionals that are like dentists, so high, skilled service professionals in urban Canada is essentially the target market. So it's like, here's 5 topics that we could theoretically talk about. How AI chatbots can transform your dental practice, boosting your fitness business, leveraging custom AI solutions for vets, AI and chiropractic care. Let's just say go with number 4. It already knows the next step is to look at those keywords. So I don't necessarily have to prompt it because it already knows the process it's supposed to go through. So it's saying, boop, now let's identify the keywords. Now it's going to create the detailed outline. It takes it piece by piece by piece because I've already trained it how to do that. Even if it's just as basic as me putting in a prompt that explains who it is, what it does, and how it does it. And it's able to now, if I can choose to change any of this stuff if I want to, like, oh, I don't like this section, I'll take this section out, I'll take this section out. And this isn't perfect. I'm going to go back and change it because it's way too big. Like some of the sections, when it starts writing them out, I'm like, that's too long. So what I found is like, I'll limit the number of sections it puts in the blog for one. I'll be like, hey, I want you instead now to have 4 sections max per blog. Because I don't think people are going to read a 7-section blog, right? Or I'll say, hey, just build the blog based on section 2, 4, and 6. That's all I want you to write about. But this, in and of itself, if anyone here has to create content for any reason, already what I've gotten in 4 clicks would have taken me a long time to figure out and research and do. This is the power of this type of AI, is not to necessarily, yes, it is going to do the work for you, but it is doing it in a way that you have told it. This is the way that we need to do it. This is the context for the role. And again, you're delegating it, right? You're not giving them the power necessarily. You're telling it certain things about your business, who you are, your customers, and it will make better quality things for you as a result. Okay? So that's GPTs, and they are built on prompts. So I know that has been, and I've talked about custom GPT, so I'm going to skip ahead a little bit here. Any questions on GPTs or anything that I've shown you? Yeah.
For the Scholar GPT, would you still recommend checking that one, even though that's going to be like an expert in?
I would still look at the so I always ask for links. If I'm getting it to do research specifically, I will always be like, show me the link that you got this from. And then I will do some level of verification on it. Like, is it still up? Because I've seen it a lot of times where it's like, it's not physically there anymore. The website that it got its stuff from was from an old cached version of Google, and it's not available anymore. And I would find the section that it refers to just to validate. But trust but verify is all that you can do in a lot of those circumstances. But it cuts down on your time still, right? So I would still like get the link, look at it, search for those terms, and just make sure in context it makes sense. And it will get better over time. But in the long run, it is meant to make you more effective and efficient in how you do whatever it is that you're doing.
I just wrote a letter.
Yeah.
And I just prompted it for the 3 things that we're talking about.
Yeah.
And put I, so change I to B.
Yeah.
And added in, please change so-and-so or this and add this, and it just dumps it right in.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it just speeds things up. It just speeds things up, right? And once you start partnering this with even like automation, suddenly you can do a whole lot more potentially, right? Where you could set it up where you want it. If you have a Google form and you fill it all out, you could, and this is something that I do sometimes, is I'll have like a process that I hate in my business, like generating emails. I hate generating emails. So for a follow-up, I'll have like a Google form that I'll put all my relevant information in, and then it automatically puts that data in other places, and then takes that data, inputs it into a GPT, and gets a summary email written for me that it just puts into my drafts in Gmail. So from one form, suddenly I'm able to do 3 or 4 different things. Part of that utilizing ChatGPT, right? So it is just meant to speed things up, make you more effective. I'm not going to dig too much into this because it's just the same stuff that we talked about. I did include a prompt generator, so you can actually, like, there's this GitHub. If you want to go here, you could, if you wanted to, use this, and this hyperlink will be in here, and it'll be on the handout that I send as well. And you can get it to, I need an expert accountant. What do you need? Tax advice. I want it to calculate. I'm not a big fan of this one. In the process, you should. I'm not going to put anything in there. Please don't guess your answers, which is a weird thing to say, but I want it to be in plain text. This is a good idea of like all the formats that you could theoretically get. And then enter an example if you want to give it context. And literally all this does is it's a Mad Lib at the bottom. That's it. So if you follow these prompts that I have given you, you're going to build the exact same thing. Or go to ChatGPT and to be like, I need you to build me a prompt to help me with this. Ask me clarifying questions and then generate the recommended prompts for me. Okay. These are all, I mentioned a couple of these. So again, this is going to be in your presentation, but I do want to highlight a couple of these. So I'll show you Perplexity and Character AI. So Character AI is the one that we mentioned a little bit earlier, that they just have, it's like all GPTs essentially. So you can get it to pretend to be Elon Musk is the one that got them famous, kind of thing. You can get it to, it'll help you practice a new language. So this is typically free. It has good single sign-on, which means like a Google account can just log into it. It has no cost. And it's very similar, but you still probably want to build the prompts in the same way. Give it context, give it information, and like get book recommendations. We'll just go to that one quick. I'm not going to use it with voice. No yelling in the library. Yeah. So please tell me what you like to read, and then I can give you my recommendations. So I'm going to say history, see what it says. Cool. I would probably get better quality, a history of the world since 9/11. This is a very broad feedback that it has given me. I could be like, I like this type of history, and it would give me responses. But this is just, all this is a GPT that's been programmed. That's all it is. So Character AI is full of these things. You can make your own if you want to. You can, they have Haley Williams. They have, I know there's an Elon Musk kicking. Yeah, here we go. So why did you buy Twitter, Elon Musk? Oh, well, I'm wasting his time. He literally rules the world. Why did he buy Twitter? He bought it to fix it. It was a hellscape of political bias and censorship. Look at that. And you can get it if you want to regenerate it. No, tell me a different reason. But it's all it is a GPT. It is just told, you're Elon Musk. Here's information about you. Here's how you answer questions. Bought it on a whim. I'm rich like that. But it's one that you can utilize. Perplexity is another one that I'll show you real quick. And again, you have the link to this. If you are going to use one like Google, like if you're going to use something in the same way you're using Google, that's Perplexity. So you could be like, ask it for, I want you to find me available details and information about the mineral trade in South America. And all of a sudden it'll go through, provide you a summary and information, and it's sourced. Great research partner for you to be able to do things, validate and verify. And it also, like, this is the one that I would say is most like a search engine traditionally, like what you're used to using Google as. So I just wanted to show this to everyone to give you something to play around with a little bit as well.
So that's what makes it unique, is that it gives the sources.
No, it's just the way, like it's much more like it's just the functionality is more search engine than it is than it is give me a specific outcome, like a summary of something, right? Or a book recommendation or something like that. So this one, you just specifically, it does some really great stuff with sourcing and research and stuff like that, and finding answers that you would use like for Google. It can be good at that. Poe, I'll just show you real quick. I don't think anyone should necessarily, like, this just literally brings all of them together into one place. So you can talk to ChatGPT, Claude, Opus, Dolly, all these, all just in one in one format, which is Poe. I do think that, like, I don't use this a lot. I just have my account linked to it. So I haven't actually used it a ton. And I don't think you can connect it specifically with your account of ChatGPT. It's that this is just an amalgamation of a bunch of different AIs, and you can use this to access different ones if you want to. So you can get it to do a web search for you. You can get it to use Claude 3, which is the exact same thing as ChatGPT, but arguably has better quality results that it gives you. So this is just another one that you're going to use it the same way, but again, it's got these built into it if you want to be able to help give it more context. It has these bots that are those GPTs, and it can connect with other AIs as well. This I'm going to send to you. So I'll make this full screen real quick. The one thing that is on here that, well, a couple things that I'd say to look at. I added a couple of other prompt structures in here for you. So you don't necessarily have to do the one that I had mentioned. There's a lot of other ways you can think about structuring a prompt. Most of them you'll find have some very common elements, specifically in identifying the role, giving it context and information, examples, expectations, like those, they might say them in different, like this smarter one, for example, modality is just format. What's the format that you want me to give this to you in? So these are just different ways. One really good one that I like that I didn't talk a lot about is this BAB. So current state, where you want to be, and what can it do for you to get you there. So I've used this before for search engine optimization as an example, where it's like, hey, I'm not ranking at all on search engine optimization. I want to be in the top 10 in this area for this industry. Build me a strategy that can help me get there, essentially. So you can use that to help bridge the gap. This is current state, future state, what's preventing you from getting there, and try and get it to help in developing something for you. And it has a little bit more in terms of roles. And the big one that I added in for the general tips there was prompt it to ask you questions. So if you think that it needs more information to do its prompt, you can specifically tell it, ask me more questions to get the information and context you need to give me what I need. And it'll ask you questions. Okay. What's that?
You take a book, like a 150-page book, put it in here and ask it to.
Yeah, absolutely. So it depends on the format, and it might take a while for you to do it. And sometimes, in order to save time, what it will do is it will in-depth read portions of it, and it'll scan the rest essentially, and then pull from that context. But absolutely, if you have that type of format, if you have a whole book, then you absolutely could do that theoretically.
My daughter used that Amazon AI down, and it's what's the top books that people download. Mm-hmm. And she's an architect. One of them was one of the needs for a book was to use a CAD system. She used AI to build this book, 150-page book, cut and pasted it into Grammarly, I guess it's called, mm-hmm. And then did all that format, and then now she's reading through it to make sure it's accurate.
Yep, absolutely. This, you can absolutely use AI to build books. It's lightning fast. Especially if you know how you want it to do it, without a doubt. You can do that. A lot of people do. There's AI specifically designed to do that. That it's like, give me some relevant information, and then I'll spit a book out for you. And we're talking ebooks. We're not talking like Lord of the Rings style 900-page books. We're talking like 150 those style of books, but they can absolutely do that. Absolutely.
You could sell it, could you?
Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah, absolutely. You just want to.
Sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But it just, again, like trust but verify with something like that. But yeah, I used AI to help as a research assistant when I wrote my book. Absolutely. It speeds the process up. And again, you have to be specific. You have to give it good guidance, but you can absolutely do that. I know people that have, I know someone that did AI books and makes 150 grand a year selling digital stuff through that type of thing for relatively no input. He's a really intelligent dude, understands a lot of these topics, and makes digital products with AI and like jealous. I am so jealous of this person that can do this, where it's like his passive income is at a point, right? And his input is very minimum, but he understands how to do it. That's the thing, right?
So on mine, I have three little symbols at the bottom. One's a clipboard that says copy.
Yep.
That's copy and paste into like a document.
Yeah, into like a Word document or something.
And then regenerate just
Yeah, it's like, oh, I didn't like what you just said there. Regenerate that.
And
Yeah.
that's a thumbs down.
Yeah. So that'll kick it back to the training model to say, hey, something's not right here. And you saying this is a bad quality response helps to train the model in the future as well.
It won't actually let me.
Do you have something that you already input in there?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it won't let you give the thumbs down?
No, I haven't made it.
Oh.
I'm just wondering what the bottom thing's for.
Yeah.
But it won't let me change a word directly in it. So I have the document, the letter.
Yeah.
If I say I want to click on a word and change it to a different word, it won't let me do it.
So you just
Yeah,
copy
no,
and
you can't
paste.
do that. Copy and paste it into a Google Doc or a Word document
Yeah.
and then just do it that way. Change it there. And then make sure if you hit that copy at the bottom after it's generated something, that you remove the made by GPT part of it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Any questions on any other questions on anything that we've talked about today? I know it was a big topic, or even about ideas about what we, if anything, want to talk about next in this big world of AI and technology. Any questions, thoughts, or ideas?
I like how it's remembering, you know, your conversations, because
Yeah.
as I'm using it more for my business, and I've put a lot of prompts in,
Yeah.
and it's nice to not have to repeat yourself, and
Yeah,
it just
absolutely.
it scans through there. And
Yeah.
I didn't even know if it was doing that until it just said the other day,
Yeah.
based on what you've told me in the past,
Mhm.
Yeah.
and then it spit out all this stuff, and I thought, oh, that's great. And you have ongoing projects, funding
absolutely.
or grants, or, you know, things
Mhm.
that you're trying to do. So that's
absolutely.
cool. Yeah.
To add on to that too, like at the end of the year, if you say what is my top 5 achievements this year, it'll actually take your past data and like throw it all in there, right?
Yeah.
It's really neat.
It's really great, especially if you can feed it with more information.
Mhm.
It's just going to give you better quality stuff out, right? And there's there's new opportunities every day for you to add more information in there and more data in there. There's like, even within the past few months, the ability for you to change and modify how it helps you. Even just this thing that I showed you today, where you can give it context about who you are, that's a game changer. The ability for it to know across all of your conversations and have context, that's a game changer for AI, right? So it is going to keep getting better, but remember that it is dumber than people, right? So we need to give it more precise guidance, right? I used to tell people with business plans that you need to be able to give it to a 13-year-old and they need to understand. And I think it's the same with prompts. Like, make it very simple so that someone with very little understanding could go and execute on it. Absolutely. Any other questions or even thoughts about, is there anything that we talked about so far in all the courses that we'd want to dig more into, or areas that we haven't talked about that we could dig into?
What if somebody has access to a database of people? I just typed in the person's last name, the minister's last name, and it automatically downloaded his first name in the letter.
In ChatGPT? Yeah. It's getting better by the day, right? And you're going to see other companies that rise. Like there's ones that are coming out of other countries right now that apparently are even better and better performing. So you're going to see probably some change, but I think it's good change, hopefully.
So as a business owner like myself,
Yeah.
you can just plug, you could be like, hey, ChatGPT, I want you to see my website and learn more about me and what I do, and just kind of keep training it in that way as well. Like,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But then get specific about like, help me to improve my website or my SEO.
Absolutely. And you want to make sure that you give it, continue to update data if you can, right? Where like, especially with stuff like SEO, you want to be able to give it the most up-to-date information that you can. So like, take what you have for your website as an example, or like even if for the county, any website data that you have, download it into a CSV file. That just means Excel, right? And you upload that then to ChatGPT and be like, here's my website data for the past month. Analyze it for me. Act as a website expert. Tell me what this data means, right? And you can get it to do that. And you can say, with the GPTs, you can just update the data that you have in there as well. So like if you have a continuous file that you just are inputting your data into, once a month, go in and update the data that you're training that GPT with. And it'll know what works, what doesn't, right? But it's just building that over time.
Do you have multiple GPTs for your business?
Right now, yes, I only have one that I actively use, but I have another one that I'm building right now to do stuff.
So that-
It's great for making things go by quicker. And
You
just
have these little specific
Yeah.
bots working for you on
Yeah.
these specific
Yeah.
things.
and
That's-
even if they're working for my business, like I said, the email one is the big thing on my list, where I can just do one thing and then my summary emails after meetings are just automatically generated and put in drafts. I won't let it send it. I'm like, I still need to read it, but that also then ties into the world of process automation, which we haven't talked a ton about necessarily, of like, how do you automate processes with AI to make it so if this happens in this software, then in this software this happens, which we could, if people are interested in talk about what is process automation and how do you do it.
I think that would be a good one, and also
Yeah.
maybe more on, creating your little GPTs.
Actually getting those templates too.
Right.
Yeah.
With you, yeah.
Yep, absolutely. We could dig more into specific GPT creation and automation, kind of scratch the surface next time.
Mhm.
Any other ideas or thoughts?
Can you use this to create an ebook? Like I have my Mother Earth book, and it has all kinds of references to other websites and see page such and such. And
Mhm.
so could you use this to create an ebook out of that with all the links?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and it wouldn't necessarily even be ChatGPT. There's other AIs that develop ebooks as well. There's options out there, absolutely. But ebooks, especially, is an industry that's seen a lot of impact as a result of AI. Yeah, without a doubt. And you might find though that you might find that you're using, and again, like this is where I think some of these learnings from today were like, even when you look at the process of creating an ebook, say, there's lots of roles and things that go into doing that. That's like the writer, the researcher, the editor, right? Like so to ask it to be like, hey, just write a book. Sometimes you're going to lose quality as a result of that versus let's start with the outline. I want you to like do this thing for me first. This is the first step. Now this is the second step. This is the third step, right? Because if you ask it to do too much, it's going to give you bad quality results back, right?
But if the book's already written,
Oh yeah, you could absolutely, like you could upload
It's
it
just
and
done all the hard
yeah.
work already.
Yeah. Is it in a Word document or like, or is it an actual physical book?
it's a 5.5-pound book.
So what is the format that you sent to the printer? Like a PDF?
Yes, I designed it in Adobe InDesign.
Yeah.
And then sent it as PDF.
And so how are you hoping to sell the ebook? Like through Amazon, through your website? Like how do you want to sell it?
Probably through my website and Amazon.
You could just literally upload it and tell it to convert the format into an ebook format. Or I think, does Amazon not have the ability for you to just upload a PDF to be an ebook? I thought they did. I think you can just upload a PDF right to Amazon, but they'll have a certain file type that they need.
Right.
So you could just say, if it's a different file type than what you have, give it the file type you do have that's a PDF and tell it to convert it over into a different file type is an option for you as well. Yeah.
The other thing I was wondering is I have a WordPress website,
Mhm.
and I would probably use another kind of website if I had known, but I have 250 card designs plus my book, so I don't want to switch. So I could use AI to, like I know how to add products and do simple things, but for more complicated things, you have to know how to code. And I pay Strong Coffee Marketing in Edmonton quite a bit to do that sort of thing.
Mhm.
So you can use AI to say, I want to add this video on this page.
Yeah, absolutely. What I would probably do is, I'm just going to go back to ChatGPT here, wherever.
You don't have a book. It's phenomenal.
No.
I was just gonna say, yeah. Her book is
And
so
everything
amazing,
in
you
the book,
guys.
it's-
You have to have
I
it.
have like 2 of them.
Yeah.
One to my mom.
Yeah, me too.
I bought a whole bunch here.
Yeah. I bought one for my mom, and I bought one for my husband's
It's insane.
family when they came
I know.
from England.
I'm Denver's mom.
I know.
Yeah.
I got excited when I saw. I've known Denver since I was 14, 15,
Oh,
like
wow.
kids. So I have, absolutely. What I would do is WordPress, like the coding. Do you know the coding language that they use by any chance? Like, is it JavaScript or?
I could find that out.
Because what you,
Ask GT.
that's okay. So what you can do though is I need to embed a video in my website. Can you create a JavaScript code that I can add to WordPress?
And then you would give it the YouTube link or?
It would probably tell you. We'll see what the prompt actually gives us back,
Oh,
right?
okay.
Code that I can add to WordPress for this purpose. I'm just gonna see what it says. I don't do a lot of this. Like, I don't do a ton of the coding aspect of it. So choose the video, decide the placement. So it's already telling us like, here's the things that I would need to know in addition to. So once we know I want it on this part in this page and here's the URL, it'll spit out a code for you. So you could absolutely do it that way.
Yeah.
That's probably the easiest way if you're dealing with WordPress, especially if there's coding involved in it, right? You could always potentially try and switch to another website that's easier to manage that way, but it's not always easy, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I'm very challenged technically.
Yeah, and so there are options out there. I think this, and we could talk about even maybe how to build a custom GPT that would help specifically you for your website to make changes and stuff like that.
Right.
But we can try and find a way to make it easier for you,
Yeah.
without a doubt.
What's that?
Do you live in town or in town?
No, I live in Peace River.
Oh, okay, because we have a program where
Yeah.
we use
Oh, I see.
Jason to be able to help you with that.
Or I could just straight out hire him.
Yeah. Or just get Denver to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, he's studying software development.
Yeah.
So,
He knows way more about this stuff than I do.
Yeah. Also, I didn't find out about this until this course, so we're the first two recorded?
Yes,
So I
the
can-
the second one, the channel.
Yeah.
I will share it.
Okay, thank you. That'd be
Yeah.
great. Yeah.
Graphs and stuff would be nice. Okay, more.
How to figure out how to
We
turn.
have a lot of fire department statistics and we have council responses and that's a pretty graph.
Yep, absolutely. Bring that. So again, like whether you do a custom GPT or just, we can bring it next time and show it to me. And it just becomes about that prompt. I need you to take this data and turn it into this type of graph for me and get it to like play around with it and see if it works or not with some of the prompts that I gave you today, and add that data in there and then tell it to do it. And then let me know how it works. And then if we can refine it, if you find that like, whenever we do this next, if you're like, it's not giving me what I need, then let me know and we can refine that prompt down a little bit and change some of the parts of it. Any other thoughts or questions? No? Cool. Well, we'll let those that are online go as well. Thank you for joining us, and we'll meet again. We'll figure out a time that works in probably June, and then go from there and talk more about GPTs and what was the other thing I'm having a brain fart. Automation. We were going to talk a little bit about automation, right?